says, now it's ended. What do you think went wrong with the DCEU with such promise and potential, and what do you want to see from James Gunn DCEU? Lots to unpack there. I'll tell you this right now. Here's what I think went wrong, and you might disagree because everybody has their favorites of the DCEU. I'm a Zack Snyder fan as far as his movies go in the DCEU. I loved his vision. I liked that his movies, all three of his movies, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, his version, all had a very similar tone. You know, they had a little bit of comedy, but the movie wasn't taken over by comedy, right? I think Zack Snyder should have been the leader of that whole thing. And I think even though those movies didn't make the money at the time that Marvel was making, they, I think to this day, still have, they made the most, aside from the first Aquaman, which made $1 billion, which was the only one that made $1 billion. But they were tracking pretty well with those three movies. So my personal opinion, I think they should have had Zack Snyder leading the charge, because the first Wonder Woman did quite well, and it had a little bit of comedy, but it kind of stayed in that framework. So I think they should have just stayed the course with all of their properties. But I think what happened was Warner Brothers jumped the gun and they got scared because they didn't make $1 billion like Marvel was doing. And so they quickly said, we got to copy Marvel. We gotta have more comedy in our movies. And I think it just felt shoehorned in with a lot of their movies. It just didn't feel like Wonder Woman 84 was atrocious, was horrible. Yeah, I think that's your short answer. I think that's what happened. And I think they just lost track. And then once you lose your audience, it's hard to get them back. And I think that's what happened. They lost a lot of their audience. As far as James Gunn, man, I don't know, because I'm kind of frustrated with what's, where the I'll just say DCU is right now, even though it's DCEU. I'm kind of frustrated with where we are right now. I think it's smart that he's starting off with Superman Legacy, at least for selfish reasons. Superman's my guy. My two favorite superheroes. Guys, tell me in the chat, what's your favorite superhero? Give me your top three, okay? My two favorite superheroes are the Hulk and Superman. Mostly for nostalgic reasons. When I was a kid, I just loved those two characters to death. And it's funny because those are the two characters in both companies that they seem to have a tough time translating onto the big screen. They have a tough time with Superman, and they have a tough time with the Hulk. And those two properties don't fare as well financially as, like, say, Batman and Spider-Man. And those those have, and I love Batman and Spider-Man, but my guys, Hulk and Superman, maybe it is hard to, because Superman's perfect, right? And he's got the only weakness he has is the kryptonite. So maybe he's just a really hard character to write. But I think he's been written well before. With Richard Donner, what Richard Donner did with Superman back in '78 was, I wouldn't say perfection, but it was great. It was really great. And first movie I ever saw in the theater was Superman 2. And man, I was on cloud nine. I was like, that's my guy, right? I want to be Superman. All right, can you see it now? Let me know, guys. Let me know. It's not Fred Armisen. That is like 1979, all right? 1980, something like that, all right? One observation I have about the show that I love so much, can a guy go to any town without not having the living shit beat out of him? I swear, every town that David Banner goes to, he ends up getting the living shit beat out of him. And usually it's like horribly by a whole bunch of guys. They're throwing him around like a rag doll. They usually throw him in like a well, something like that, or they'll throw him behind a fence, or they're like the last episode I was watching, he was in a bar. And everybody's just beating the living shit out of this guy. Because I guess you wouldn't have an episode, right? He's got to turn into the Hulk. Okay, nobody knows. All right. That is Don Shanks from Halloween 5 on the right. Don Shanks, he's been in the business for ages. And he's probably in his 20s there, maybe. something like that. But yeah, that's probably him, and that's like 1979, 1980, Don Shanks, right? And I think because he has a couple lines in the show, but it didn't sound like Shanks at all. So I'm thinking they overdubbed his voice with another actor, which was very common back then. They would do that. Another observation about the Incredible Hulk: some of the animals that the Hulk would fight were the most hilarious thing I've ever seen in my life. One of them was called the Antawak horror. I think it's in season 2, and it's basically this guy. He sees Banner turn into the Hulk, and so then the town needs money. It's run down, and so what does he do? He gets this makeup and he makes himself look like a monster, but it's the most obvious, horrible hack job you've ever seen in your life. Like nobody would get that. And so it's just this dude running around pretty much like Halloween, like he's on Halloween in a costume, running around it's like scaring people. And they all run. Even grown men, they run like they're scared to death of him. He's not even he's probably like 5'10". And he looks hilarious. Oh yeah, but by the way, Incredible Hulk, there's another episode where he fights a gorilla, but it's a guy in an ape suit. And it's like the most obvious guy in an ape suit that you'll ever see. And it's hilarious. What's up, guys? You are at the end of the DD Live clip. What I do is I like to clip these out if I think the topic is important or something that's newsworthy. So thank you for watching, and if you want to watch more, you can go over here, you can go over here, click on one of those, and hopefully I can do this for 20 seconds, which I think I did. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching, guys.